Welcome to the New Mom Talk podcast, your go-to podcast for evidence-based answers to your burning questions about parenting. Join us as we dive into commonly Googled topics and hear from experts and real moms. Let's navigate parenthood together, one question at a time. Hi, everyone. Today, we're going to talk about traditional prenatal and postnatal vitamins and why they might fall short of what our needs are if you are expecting, if you are in that postpartum stage, feeding your little one. So, for that, we have Jeanne Reilly, who is one of the founders of I Am Nurtured. I'm really
Yes, thank you for having me today. My background's as a registered dietitian. My co-founder is also a registered dietitian, and we worked together at a digital health startup in San Diego, over 10 years ago. And when we branched off on our own and we've started our families, we realized through our own struggles, and I'm sure so many parents go through this, we have these different struggles. Each of us has our own struggles that we go through. So whether that's prenatal, postpartum, fertility, there are so many different things that can be tough as we're going through this stage of growing our families. And for me, it was the postpartum period. I was really slapped with something that I was not expecting. And my business partner, Skylar, he and his wife went through fertility struggles. And, so we came together and we said, wow, this is such a tough place to be. And there's so much information out there. It's so hard to sort through. And we as nutrition experts were thinking we should have been better prepared for this stage, but we weren't. We had to dig into the research ourselves and figure out what do we need more of in pregnancy and postpartum? What nutrients are lacking? What makes a great prenatal supplement? How do you ensure that baby has everything that they need, and mom, to ensure mom's best outcomes for moms as well? So we really dug into it and came up with these beautiful formulations based on current day research for both our prenatal and our postnatal supplement. And we also partnered with a registered herbalist, and we include some really beautiful botanical blends that support and prevent a lot of the most common symptoms in pregnancy and postpartum.
I love that. So true. Like you kind of have to figure out well, what are the needs when it comes to prenatal vitamins. You're just told to have a prenatal vitamin and to continue that if you are nursing once baby is here. So that said, let's just go ahead and dive into what some common misconceptions are about traditional prenatal and postnatal vitamins, which I feel like postnatal vitamins are kind of more rare to find. So I'm really excited to really dive into this with you.
Yes. So common misconceptions are that, anything that says prenatal is fine, great, right? And in fact, my OBGYN, my first pregnancy, said the same thing. And I was like, I know that's not right. I can't tell you why yet, but I'm going to find out. The supplement industry is unregulated and you really get what you pay for. So the higher quality vitamins are more expensive. The one-a-day gummies that cost $10 a month are really not doing much for you. So, there are so many specific nutrients that the quality of the nutrient matters, the quantity of the nutrient matters, the form of the nutrient matters. There are lots of nutrients, vitamins, and minerals that are just left out of cheaper brands because either they want to keep a small serving size, like one capsule or one gummy a day. And these ingredients are bulky, so they just don't fit, but they're very important, like choline and magnesium, for example. So, to really get the most out of a quality vitamin, you are looking at typically, 3 to 5 capsules a day, or more. There are some that are 8 to 12 capsules a day. So yeah, and a lot of moms want to combine everything in one pill, one capsule. That includes the omega-3s. We all know we're supposed to take omega-3s, or, are suggested to combine it with your prenatal. And that's a big no-no because the omegas are oils. The EPA and DHA are oils, and they go rancid when they're combined with vitamins and minerals. So you do want to take a separate prenatal and a separate EPA DHA supplement.
See, all these things that you just don't think about.
Yeah.
So you mentioned a little bit about the key nutrients. So let's talk about what some key nutrients are that traditional prenatal vitamins often might lack or there just might not be sufficient amounts in some of these vitamins. Like, let's say I just go to Target and I buy whatever is on sale versus going to, Sprouts or a vitamin shop and buying something that maybe I can talk to someone that's more knowledgeable about that.
Mm-hmm. The number one thing you will hear still from OBGYNs is folic acid, right? They recommend folic acid to prevent neural tube defects. There is overwhelming research that says folic acid is not ideal. It's a synthetic form of folate. Our bodies don't make it, and it has to go through many conversion steps in our body before it even is converted into folate. So, just throwing out example numbers, if you consume 100 milligrams of folic acid, you may have 20 usable milligrams by the time it reaches the form of folate. So you want to do not buy anything that has folic acid in it. And that is the majority of stuff on the shelves still, unfortunately. So you have to look for something that has methylfolate or 5-MTHF, which is 5-methyl tetrahydrofolate. This is the methylated active form of folate. And once it goes in your mouth and is absorbed into your body, it is usable immediately. A lot of moms may have heard of the MTHFR genetic mutation. Over 60% of our population now has this genetic mutation, and they cannot even process folic acid. And it actually builds up in their body as homocysteine and becomes this really inflammatory, unfriendly environment. And especially if you're having fertility issues or in pregnancy, inflammation is the last thing you want. So if you don't know your genetics as far as the MTHFR gene, just avoid folic acid altogether. A couple of other big ones, selenium and iodine, are huge for thyroid health. And a lot of moms experience thyroid issues postpartum. So you want to make sure your prenatal has selenium and iodine. Those are often skipped. Same with choline and magnesium. Those are the big bulky nutrients. And they're often included in such small amounts because they're big and bulky that it's not even an effective dose. It's kind of just like, it may be on the label in a very small amount, but it's actually not doing much for you. Upwards of 300 milligrams of choline is ideal. We have about 150 in a serving size of our prenatal. And then when you add on the postnatal, it adds even more choline because it's so beneficial for baby's brain development. And then, we leave space for getting choline from your food too. Eggs are very high in choline. We want these supplements should always be an insurance policy, not take place of your diet. But we realize, pregnancy and postpartum it's a tough time to consume an ideal diet. There are lots of food aversions and nausea and all of that. So, do your best and then take your insurance policy also.
I love that you mentioned folate versus the folic acid.
Mm-hmm.
That was something I didn't know until one of my girlfriends, I was talking to her about your vitamins, and she was like, is it folate or folic acid? And just kind of told me a little bit about it. And I was like, how did I not know this? I mean, it's very simple to not know. You just can't know everything, especially when the science is changing. It's hard for you as a mom to keep up with just being a mom. Keep up with the laundry.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that you mentioned all of these. So let's move on a little bit about our bodies absorbing all the nutrients. Do they absorb all the nutrients that are in a prenatal vitamin, or do some go wasted if it's just a traditional one that you, again, grab over the counter at CVS, whatever everyday store that we shop at?
Yeah. So again, that goes into the form of the nutrient you're using, right? So we talked about methylated vitamins and minerals, so that they're the active forms. And you will see in a lot of the cheap versions of supplements across the board, they'll use cheap ingredients and they are not the ideal active form. So just like the example we gave with folic acid, they have to go through lots of conversion steps. So essentially there is a ton of waste happening and your body's not benefiting from consuming that active form that's immediately usable and immediately absorbable. Essentially, it's like this, they're the most bioavailable. So you get what you see on the nutrition label. B vitamins are an example of that. There are so many different forms of B vitamins and they're water soluble. So you may just flush out what you don't use. But if you're consuming the methylated active forms of these B vitamins, which are in such high demand during pregnancy and postpartum, you're going to get so much more absorbed than if you were using the cheap versions.
Hi everyone, it's your host Mariella. I wanted to thank you for listening and share some ways to show your continued support. You can rate and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Share the show with friends and family. Buy me a coffee to help with the financial costs of running a podcast. Follow me on Instagram at newmomtalk.podcast. And finally, subscribe to my newsletter. Thank you for listening. Well, what should expecting moms and new moms look for in a high quality prenatal and postnatal supplement to ensure that they are getting the best nutrition from the supplement, obviously excluding what they should be getting from their diet, which
Yeah.
if you are nursing, you can't stop eating, right? You're always hungry, but you
Yeah.
can't always eat a good meal because you're just nursing.
It's true. It's true. So, what you should be looking for is very high doses in terms of the RDA. So, when we look at the label, you should not be surprised to see percentage of your daily values in the hundreds to thousands of a daily percent, right? So, the RDAs are actually based upon research that was done in the 1950s on men. It's not done based on pregnant women. And current research is coming out and showing us that, I mentioned 300 milligrams of choline. There's actually research that's showing that 900 milligrams of choline daily is beneficial in children all the way up until after their 7th year. They're testing cognitive tests following these kids that were in these studies from baby until 7 years, and they're testing so much higher on cognitive scores because of this choline intake, right? And doing current research. So look for high doses of most of the vitamins and minerals. Look for those active forms. So you're going to see, like I said, methyl. Look for the words methyl on your folate. Make sure that the brands are advertising the active methylated bioavailable forms of these nutrients. And then again, highlighting some that are so important that you do not want to miss. I'm going to harp again on the folate, methylfolate. Selenium, iodine, magnesium is very important, especially, towards the end if you're getting cramps. It helps with sleeplessness. It helps with calm moods. It's just wonderful. Vitamin D is huge also for your immunity, for baby's immunity, and for your mood. It's wonderful. Many brands just don't include enough vitamin D. And if you get up to 6,400 IUs of vitamin D a day, you can actually avoid having to give baby those vitamin D drops postpartum because enough transfers through your breast milk. So yeah, it's, there are so many, I could list so many. A lot of popular brands out there have like 12 ingredients. We have 24 plus all of the different botanicals. So you really do need to pay attention to how many ingredients, like, are you actually getting coverage for all of the things that you need? Is it enough of all of those ingredients? And is it the right forms?
I'm really glad that you mentioned the vitamin D because that is like something that you're told right away. If you are nursing, you have to give those vitamin D drops. So let's talk a little bit more about maybe diet and lifestyle choices and how these choices can complement a prenatal or postnatal vitamin for the best overall health. Like, what are some
Yeah.
that you would recommend or suggest that people consider when it comes to this?
Yeah. There's nothing flashy or fancy about a special diet for pregnancy or postpartum. What I would recommend though is, and this is so trendy right now, right? Protein. But protein it is so important, especially during baby's growth and development. It has all of the amino acids that are needed to keep mom satiated and healthy. So making sure you're getting adequate protein, it all trickles down to helping you have a more stable blood sugar balance as well. Gestational diabetes is very common and becoming even more common. So making sure that throughout pregnancy, you're keeping your blood sugar stable with, high protein meals, lots of fiber, and as much as you can, just aiming for eating a whole food diet. Now, that's easier said than done, right? Like in my first trimester, only wanted buttery carbs, right? Like you could not put a vegetable in front of my face. So, finding ways to fit that in. So maybe it's like finding a high quality protein powder to put in your smoothie, or putting a scoop of collagen in your coffee, or if you're drinking coffee, or like some other way to kind of just fit protein in where you can. Same thing with vegetables, sneak it in a smoothie, bake it into whatever you're like a sauce that you're making. If you're having pasta, just throw some extra spinach in your sauce, kind of sneak it in there and treat yourself almost like a little kid, if you're having these food aversions or nausea, and just try to sneak in the good stuff wherever you can, and in the postpartum period, as far as diet needs, I would just encourage all moms to just take your time. Don't buy into the bounce back culture. It is not a time to diet. It will impact your stress levels and your breast milk supply. So give yourself time to adjust. It took 9-10 months to grow this baby, and just give yourself the grace to just slowly adjust, and your body will drop the excess weight. Just in the meantime, nurture yourself and take care of yourself with really good quality whole foods.
Love that you mentioned that, because I feel like, yeah, you're kind of on this like waiting game after you have baby and the 6 weeks come along, and then it's like, okay, you're clear to do everything that you were able to do before you were pregnant, even though you couldn't run at the pace that you used to or lift as much as you used to, right? And there's no direction on like how to ease back into a fitness routine. So yeah, I love that you just mentioned like take it slow, take care of yourself, and really think about easing into these practices that you did before becoming pregnant.
Yes. And there are so many great programs out there now, like Birth Fit is one that I know of that's excellent. There are so many others that offer moms this program to take them on that more slow journey to really, make sure your pelvic floor and your abdominal wall are really ready for the exercises that you want to get back to. It is a rebuilding. And that good nutrition is so important for all the connective tissues that have been stretched out. And, it does take time for your body to repair. So having all those nutrients available, continuing your prenatal and then adding on the postnatal support as well is so, so beneficial for an ideal postpartum recovery.
Finally, my last question. Do you have any other tips, suggestions, or recommendations for anyone that is in the stage of whether they're taking a prenatal vitamin or looking at starting a postnatal vitamin anytime soon because baby's arriving?
Yeah, I would say, really, pay attention to quality. Know who makes your products, because like I said, it is unregulated, and any brand can slap a label on a vitamin and call it a prenatal. And just do yourself a favor and do a little bit of research. I am always happy to answer questions. If you can email us directly at hello@iamnurtured.com, and myself or Skylar, both registered dietitians, we specialize in this. We're happy to answer questions. It's not common for OBGYNs to really have much information on or guidance for their patients. And in fact, like we've seen this in OBGYNs offices and midwives that we've talked to, they don't know what to recommend because that's not their training. It's not their specialization. And so talk to people that you trust, whether other moms who have done the research, talk to us, talk to a naturopath. Naturopath and more functional medicine based doctors will have this information. And, take the time and money to invest in yourself and your baby, because having replete nutrient stores and not being so depleted going into postpartum or continuing that depletion postpartum, it absolutely does make a difference in your experience and how you feel and your relation, how you're relating to this new life as a mom.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'll add that to the show notes. I'll have all of your contact info in the show notes. So if anyone wants to reach out, they'll be able to get linked through there. Thank you. Thank you for listening. Tune in next week for our next episode. You can find us on Instagram for more updates and tips. Be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts and give us a review if you like us.